shoulder here, nestled underneath another parasitic crater, another parasitic caldera of the larger Cathala volcano, is Moroni, the capital of Comoros. Welcome to the South Indian Ocean.
Gonna put the world away for a minute, pretend I don't live in it. Sunshine gonna wash my blues away. Had sweet love, but I lost it. She got too close, so far.
So what's the place that's made romantic by Alex the Lion escaping from New York Zoo and then falling out of the sky with a whole bunch of penguins in a broken aeroplane in which there is a giraffe in love with a hippo?
I love you, Gloria! I always have!
To move it. I like to move it. Yeah, I like to move it.
Yeah, me and a whole bunch of cows welcome you to Madagascar.
I like to move it. You like to move it. She like to move it. He like to.
Here is the Rover. This is the old royal palace of the Malagasys. You know, Madagascar was only founded about 2,000 years ago, and most of its history, it was ruled by various kingdoms. And this fortified palace on the highest hill around the capital, Antananarivo, was designed by a Scottish man. The palace itself was gutted by fire in 1995, which is why, well, you can see right through it, and they've started the renovations of it. And it will be some time before you're allowed back in again. But given the magnificent views from the top of the hill here, you can understand why this was the place they decided to build a fortified palace. Other than the one royal palace, of course, Antananarivo, like a lot of developing countries, has its slum areas and people living on the sides of garbage tips or behind markets, relying upon putrid and dirty water for day-to-day activities, but maintaining a smile while standing around some horrid rubbish. Young people working in markets, carrying bricks, or all sorts of other activities that are needed to be done to bring money in, still managing to smile and laugh at the times when they can be just kids, maintaining human dignity and a smile on their face, concentrating sometimes on what it is that they have, not what it is that they don't have, yet their poverty still reaches out. That's Antananarivo. We're in Nosy Bay in Madagascar, and we're doing some quad biking. And funnily enough, you know you're not going to be doing any radical quad biking when your guide is on a motor scooter.
To move it. You like to move it. She like to move it.
Here we have a female chameleon. A cruel person would say all females are chameleons of whatever species, changing colour whichever way it suits them. But this one is a Madagascan female chameleon. This is Mora Mora waterfall. Mora Mora means slowly, and it's said to be sacred, and pregnant women will make an offering here to help with the pregnancy. Madagascar, like a lot of African countries, is a country full of juxtapositions and contradictions of different sorts of automobiles driving by and all sorts of levels of wealth. Don't get me wrong, there are some people in this country that are phenomenally rich, but others that are scraping well below the bottom of the poverty barrel. But you'll still see kids running around with big smiles on their faces, with distended bellies, giving away their level of malnutrition, and yet others who will be going around in their school uniforms also with smiles on their faces, because they understand that education is a privilege, not a right. It's one of the things here in Madagascar. So look-see time. If we're going to be in Madagascar, we might as well go to the jungle and see what we can see. Many things in the jungle have evolved, so they're very hard to see. Let me show you a couple of reptiles that live on the sides of trees, and if you don't look closely, you'll miss them. If I had one of those scratch and sniff things for this part of the Madagascan jungle, it would smell just like vanilla because there's lots of wild vanilla growing here. It smells like Jock's ice cream. For some people it's very happy to know that lemurs are female-dominated species, and the males will only eat after the females have. We've come across a small group of males here who are eating some jackfruit on the ground, and hence most of the females must have already eaten.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it, move it. She like to move it, move it. He like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it, move it. She like to move it, move it. He like to move it.
Gonna put the world away for a minute, pretend I don't live in it. Sunshine gonna wash my blues away. Has sweet love.
Certainly when you get away from Antananarivo, you hit some of the more idealistic and beautiful parts of Madagascar, like this beach in the south of Nosy Bay. Mind you, you still reach poor levels of poverty, poor ablutions and sanitation, as well as garbage all around the place. I mean, that's the latrine set for this entire village. I'm on the top of a small island called Nosy Trenicala, which derives from the local language as small island, imaginatively named because it's next to Nosy Bay, Big Island. There are two islands off the northwest coast of Madagascar, and you can see from this old, now disused lighthouse a magnificent 360-degree view from which you can see around about a dozen calderas of volcanoes. Most of Madagascar is volcanic and built from those volcanoes split between the Indian Ocean plate and the African continental plate. So Madagascar here hasn't been around that long in terms of human settlement. Only settled about 2,000 years ago, and the population here is mixed between Indian, African, Arabic, really showing the mix of trading routes that used to pass through here. For most of its couple of thousand years, different royal clans feuded over the territory, the strongest becoming the Marina clan that ruled until the French basically took over the place. When did they do that? Late 1800s, I think early 1900s, and finally grabbed independence in 1960. What are my final thoughts about Madagascar? Well, firstly, the capital, Antananarivo, is a shithole. It has water so putrid that it's beyond description. Slums like you would expect in a lot of the developing world, but none of the positive architecture or cultural icons or museums that would attract you to the place. You can go to the rest of Madagascar, which is really, really pretty, except for one thing. To get to the rest of Madagascar, you need to fly Air Madagascar. And I'm not so concerned about the safety, it's its on-time performance. And when I talk about on time, I don't mean it being an hour or two late, I mean whether your flight leaves or arrives the same week as you've planned. Behind me here is Moroni, the capital of Comoros. Comoros has somewhere on the three islands about 700,000 or 800,000 people, about 50,000 people down here. Comoros gained its independence from France 39 years ago today. Today is Comoran Independence Day. There are 4 islands in the Comoros chain, but one island, Mayotte, voted in the referendum to stay part of France. So along with Reunion, you have here in the South Indian Ocean a couple of geographic anachronisms. You've got 2 islands that are part of the European Union, and this country, Comoros, part of the Arab League, all next to each other. George Bush would not approve. Gran Comoro is just one great big volcano, and it's this one, 2,360 metres to the top of Mount Kathala. It'd take a day or so to walk up, so I ain't doing it. So I've settled for walking up this parasitic volcano, a secondary crater that erupted many years ago, a couple of 100 metres up, and then down into the crater itself, where we should find some rare species of vegetation. This caldera rises up directly from the Indian Ocean. A couple of 100 metres down there is the Indian Ocean, next stop Mozambique. So let's descend down into the caldera and have a look what we can see inside a rare piece of jungle. In calderas you sometimes get little microclimates and different vegetation and goats. I mean, this really is an Arabic town in the southern Indian Ocean. It was founded by a mix of Arabic traders, Indian traders, African traders, hence the huge melange here. But it's really strongly Islamic, and the Islamic influence permeates all the way through the society here, particularly here for Ramadan. This area was first settled, the archaeologists estimate, somewhere between 100 AD and 600 AD, making it a pretty new settlement. And it was settled by those Arabic traders, so you have a juxtaposition here where this series of islands, the Comoros, is heavily Islamic, heavily in the Arabic culture, and in fact Comoros is the only member of the Arab League fully in the southern hemisphere. If it looks quiet behind me as I wander through this Medina, it's because it is, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that it's the holy month of Ramadan. So a whole lot of things are shut, like the cafes and all of that sort of thing, until after the breaking of the fast. But that can't explain it all. There's a lot of other signs of decay around the place, and part of the reason is, since independence in the mid-1970s, Comoros has had no fewer than 20 military coups or attempted coups. Naturally, this has knocked the economy for more than 6. I think it's knocked it for 6 in 6 balls. There's not much you can do in the middle of the Indian Ocean when really a coup happens every 14 months on average. The last one was just a year and a half ago, and it has me thinking. One thing I don't understand here in Comoros is there's a whole bunch of these half-built buildings, some with vegetation still in them. And I'm not sure whether these were built and then abandoned, or half built and then abandoned, or who the hell abandoned them. Is it a sign of economic decay, or did these belong to people who died in one of the 20 coups since 1975? No idea. The further one gets away from Moroni, the capital of Comoros, the poorer the place becomes. Most of the construction is done with volcanic black stone, which doesn't add to the colour of the place, but it's no surprise given that the whole island is a volcano. Interestingly, you don't bump into any other white people here. There's almost no tourism in Comoros. The Lonely Planet, in fact, doesn't even have an up-to-date guide. It has a 2-page PDF that you can download for free, and it points out on that PDF that of the 3,000 tourists that come each year, most of them are just on a global quest to visit every country in the world. Remind you of anybody? As well as being a country where French cars come to die, Comoros seems to me to be a country that shipping containers come to die. throughout this country, a lot of them have been turned into houses, and in this case, shops. I'm now standing on the spine of Grand Comore. Basically, Grand Comore, the island goes from one volcano down across to another at the end, and if you look in the distance, the whole landscape is just pockmarked with caldera after caldera after caldera, created in various eruptions. Pretty cool, huh?
Sunlight shivers early light. I can't help it, I'm alive. You brought matches, I'm on fire. Sunlight shivers.
So welcome to Reunion Island. I gotta be really finicky here. Reunion Island isn't French territory, it's France, and there is a difference there. The number plates are French, the roads are French, the money is French, well, euros. And even if the sugar cane isn't typically French, the bread is. Even the obstinate check-in lady at the airport is French. This area, Reunion Island, returns 7 deputies to the lower house of France and 3 senators. It is France. And I'll tell you, every corner I turn, I see something here more beautiful. I've been to a lot of places and it takes a lot for me to go, oh wow, at some geography. But this place is stunning, and I'm absolutely not doing any justice to the beauty of Reunion in the short visit that I'm doing here. So I'm going to come back. This is now the 4th location in the world on my come back to list. It is stunning.
Sunlight whispers into night. We've got nothing but time. We've got nothing but time. I can't slow down, but I'll try. I'll try. We've got nothing but time. We've got nothing.
And the incredible thing is, I could live here. I don't just mean I could want to live here. I mean, because it's in Europe, and because until the English vote to get out of the European Union in 2017, I could live here. Ah, amazing. So for those of you who have ever thought about visiting the south of France, or taking a holiday in the south of France, or buying a house and retiring in the south of France, how about think about the extreme south of France, the South Indian Ocean and the island of Reunion.
Could you teach me some more? Tell you about the countries you've never been before. I'll go on forever.
And people ask me why I like to do corporate speaking gigs. The answer is this is why.
Not while we're living free. I can be the poet, you can be the story. You can keep me grounded, keep me on my toes. So I'll always be chasing you wherever you may go. And if you skip ahead,
So Mauritius,
break away from us.
like the other parts of the South Indian Ocean, it's beautiful. The tourism industry here is far more developed than in Comoros or Madagascar. Indeed, it's developed a little bit like Barbados. You go to a nice 5-star hotel with a pool and some lush greenery and big walls to protect you from the locals outside. So I suppose if you like to go to a great hotel and have some nice coffee around a beautiful pool but not much cultural interaction, Mauritius is one of those places for you. There's not much cultural interaction tourism available here. There's some beautiful scuba diving. You know, it's an incredible comparison. You have in just such a small distance a wide variety of cultures and economic standards coming from what is essentially the same base. Comoros and Reunion, together with Mayotte, little volcanic islands, not much except sugar cane to grow. In 1975, all under the command of France and all with the same economic standard. 39 years later, Comoros is in the poo. 20 military coups, 50% of the population under $2 a day. Reunion, GDP, 20,000 euros per head. The only difference, government and governance. So maybe the critiques of the capitalist system, maybe the critiques of the West, have forgotten to have a good look at what the alternative is. And every time there's a discussion in Mayotte, should Mayotte leave France and rejoin Comoros, all the citizens of Mayotte need to do is jump over to Comoros and say, which do I prefer? This, potholes, poor health, poor economy, all that. Good roads, better health, better economy. I know which way most people would vote in a free and fair election. But the world is full of communities and cultures that have swapped wealth for freedom. So on reflection, if you want to come somewhere beautiful with a great infrastructure and everything around you that works, Reunion, magnificent place to visit. Something a little bit more adventurous, big, a bit more African, Madagascar. You want an Arabic taste of something in the middle of nowhere, a throwback, an economy where there are no other tourists. Comoros. And if you just want to sit behind some nice big walls in a lush resort and drink some cafe lattes, then Mauritius. So the South Indian Ocean gives you this choice, a wide variety of what you can choose, a wide variety of what you can see in really a small distance. That's the South